What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Outpost. My name is Dallas,
I'm Jay.
and we are kicking it off this week. We took last week off, both had some family stuff going on, but we are back and at it, ready to go, so don't worry. We have a lot of our new segment is 100% focused on injuries. As everybody knows, the league was absolutely plagued with them on Sunday. But we're going to go over the ones that really matter and kind of our opinions on who that impacts and if it's something we should worry about. So we're going to go ahead and kick it off with some injuries here.
Yeah, so the first guy for out for season is the name everyone talked about, Saquon Barkley. I mean, if you're on Twitter or if you're on any type of media anywhere, you've seen all the information about him tearing his ACL. And so I actually posted a thread the other day about should you just drop him in redraft. I think it was,
And that was before they confirmed. Yeah.
yeah, it was like 94% yes,
Yeah.
and it's like, I'm still curious what the other 60% was going to
Like
do
what
with
they're
him.
holding on to. Yeah. I thought about in some leagues, just like as like the ones I'm really, really, really good in, just picking them up as a joke to have them
Yeah,
as like the team mascot. Like
I thought
it's
about that too.
But yeah, so it's very unfortunate. As you guys know that listen to our RB rankings, I actually had him as my one over Christian McCaffrey, just because I thought McCaffrey came down a little bit and Saquon rose and they were going to even out. Week one definitely didn't look that way, but I think that just kind of speaks to how good Pittsburgh's defense is. So it's
Yeah,
unfortunate to see what could have been, but you can't dwell on it. What does this mean for the guys like Devonta Freeman they just signed? Nothing for me. I'm
yeah,
not interested. I mean, the team's really not that good. Saquon
right.
was the whole team strictly
Yeah,
because of his talent. I don't know about you, Jay, but I'm good on them.
yeah, and I've seen some things lately too with this whole Barkley's CMC thing, where they're like, "That's why I didn't take Barkley." Never, and like that's a load of crap. Like
Yeah,
he's
that's
he's he's if not the best running back in the league, the second best fantasy. So it's like, I hate when I see stuff like that to where it's like, look, I made a good decision. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
one.
If you're running victory laps over injuries, like I've got nothing for you. I mean,
Yeah,
I've seen that like in one league specifically. Nothing against the guy. I just thought the comment was ridiculous. He put, we made a trade before the season started. It was Alvin Kamara and like a 2023 first for Christian McCaffrey, and my team was win now. And in this league, you only got it's 32 team league, and you got the players for your team. So I had the Saints, and in that league, your flexes are abysmal. So I was like, well, let me get
right.
the guy who's more likely to be two players than one, Christian McCaffrey, and I don't have to worry about that first for years. Sure. First comment after Christian McCaffrey got down. CMC who? Ha 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 ha. I'm like you don't
Yeah,
like he got injured. It's one thing if he just came out and sucked.
right,
Like people laughing about Saquon after week one, that's fine.
right.
But
Yeah,
somebody gets hurt. I mean, it's unfortunate. You may not have them. Good luck for you. Hopefully, nothing happens to your guys. But yeah, you don't victory lap over injuries, especially this past Sunday is a kind of a punch in the face for like how important preseason is because
right.
guys are just falling everywhere. We're only covering the offensive guys, and it's just as bad on the defensive side.
The second guy with a big injury is Cortland Sutton from the Denver Broncos. Going into the season, we had a lot of questions about, who's the alpha there? Will Judy take over that role? What kind of year will Locke have and Fant and such? And so it's kind of just a bummer to see Sutton go down from the fantasy's perspective. I mean, it's a positive for Judy, but I mean, you just don't want it to happen that way as guys getting hurt. So I think it shifts their offense. I watched a lot of Judy that first week. He was pretty crisp in his routes, but you can tell he was a little bit kind of swimming in the league. He looked the jersey was big on him,
Yeah,
just wasn't quite natural yet.
yeah.
And so, and I think Judy's going to be great, but it's going to be a lot of responsibility on him. So I'm excited for
Yeah.
Judy to kind of get him a little bit more targets, but I'm just bummed out for Sutton and a lot of the Broncos fans.
Yeah, for me, it was with Judy. I was already on Team Judy ahead of this, but if I'm being completely honest, this didn't shift him that much. I mean, I think that the targets are a little more confirmed now,
Yeah,
but you take some and you give some because now as he gets better, he's also going to be the primary target they focus on.
right.
Him and Fant, those are two that are going to benefit the most from this. If I had to put one individual player that benefits the most from this, it's probably Fant.
Hmm.
just because he's gonna be that guy who has those old reliable targets now, the
Yeah.
especially the end zone ones. But Judy should definitely see a uptick in targets as well, or at least a higher floor. But I mean, go get him if you can. But realistically speaking, it's going to be a hype train for the guys. So I don't know if you're going to be able to acquire them. But if you do have them, somebody should be comfortable starting now. Whereas like ahead of time, like before, Judy was an upside play. Like I think
Right.
he becomes a floor play now. I don't know how high his ceiling is, but I don't think any of us do. Especially with the other guy, I guess we can go ahead and mention that's our first one for the week by week injuries. Is another one that's down is Drew Lock. He's out for an extended period of time. They're hoping he's back before the week 8 bye, I believe they said, but
Right.
that is the at least. Uh, he should be back by then. So you still got a significant chunk. They signed Bortles. I I don't know how excited that gets anybody. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, it's an unfortunate situation. I know the Denver fans are really excited this year with Drew Lock, Sutton, all these young guys starting to come together. I guess the one other honorable mention was, like you mentioned before the show, Jay, was KJ Hamler.
Yeah.
He's going to be somebody that can come in and be like a Deshaun Jackson light. That he may only get one or two catches, but they could be really big ones. So in best ball leagues, I think definitely go get KJ Hamler if you don't have him.
Yeah.
Anything
If
that's
you're in a
going to
deeper
add.
league and you got that like that some extra flex spots or something like that, and you're digging around between like some,
Yeah.
Tajay Sharp,
Yep.
those
Yeah.
guys, or your four string running back. That's KJ
Yeah.
Hamler would be a guy that just get you a couple points and
Yeah.
maybe save you a week.
Yep. Exactly. Our next week by week, we're going to say is the biggest one is Christian McCaffrey. Another very, very unfortunate injury that happened to his ankle. I'm wholeheartedly fantasy community. If you want to rip her for this, you can blame my wife. We were watching the game, and all these players were getting injured, and she said the thing you never say. She
No.
said, Christian McCaffrey's on the screen. She goes, everybody else is going down. He's probably going to be next.
No.
I told her, I was like, why would you say that? You
Oh
know what
man.
happens when you say something like that. And sure
Yeah.
enough, he goes down with ankle injury. He's out for, I think they said 4 to 6, but he's one of those players that I think is going to force his way back in, and you're not really going to be too excited about his production if he does come back early. I'm hoping they just tell him no, they don't let
Yeah.
him and let him fully heal. Because if that's the case, then I'm all for keeping Christian McCaffrey, not doing the whole. We got a segment later that one of our Q&A questions involves him. I won't spoil too much, but if he comes back in like 2 weeks, just be wary. It's the same thing Saquon and Kamara did last year, where they came back, didn't look like
Yeah.
themselves, and then by the time playoffs rolled around, they were fully healthy, and Saquon dropped a 50 bomber in the playoffs. But it's just one of those where it's very unfortunate that we're seeing these top tier guys go down.
Mhm.
Um, you got anything you want to add about Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about McCaffrey coming back, I had this problem with I call it the OBJ problem, to where you have this guy
That's a
that has
bad
this,
problem.
right, this star power, and like you feel like if I bench them, they're gonna blow up.
Hmm.
And it's like and I thought people felt that way with Barkley last year and Kamara. Like I mean, we are just I had him like you gotta play him right,
Yeah.
and then he'd have this week and this mediocre week, but you're stuck in this idea of they're gonna get back to normal quick, whereas you could have just played. A wide receiver too, and gotten more production out of him.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of my hesitation with McCaffrey. And really, I mean, something you notice is just with Barkley and McCaffrey both getting injured, it was such like a big blow to the community as a
Yeah.
whole. It wasn't even about like your McCaffrey shares or my, it was just more about like,
Yeah.
man, it's interesting to
It
see
just
how like
sucks
those
for
are,
fantasy football because it's
yeah, I
like all
mean,
those takes you have where you're like, especially the people with the hot takes, like this person's fallen. I was like, well,
mhm,
yeah, now they did because of the injury. You can't even, take credit for it. Like my Saquon over McCaffrey. Like, well, who
right.
cares now? Zeke's probably going to be the 101. So, or
Yeah.
the RB1. So I mean, obviously you got Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs and stuff like that. But the point being is like those guys you penciled in as just the untouchable 1 and 2. Like,
Right.
this is the first, unless I'm just drawing a blank. I don't remember the last time that happened. The
I don't know.
101 and 102 that were consensus 101 and 102, no matter where you were drafting.
Yeah.
Both are down. One for the season, another for a significant chunk, whether it be actually missing or coming back and not being as good for a little bit before he comes back, and neither having a shot to uh, deliver on your draft cost on them. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean that might cost you the playoffs. Honestly, McCaffrey
mm,
being out, you we say 6 weeks from now, that's week 8.
yeah.
And if I mean,
I will say this though, like McCaffrey, based on how the injuries went with Kamara and Barkley last year, if you can structure your way through this injury, he should still be an absolute league winner because he'll show up for you in playoffs. So
yeah, you just got. I mean, if you can make it to the playoffs,
yeah,
I mean, you look at week 8, you struggle, and I know a lot of people. What I've seen is people make some monster deals if they to get that number 1 or the number 2 spot, and kind of just blew up their teams with, as you mentioned earlier too, kind of that to have that 2-for-1 player, and then now you don't have them at all,
yeah,
and so it's like if you can weather that storm and keep them and McCaffrey and get
mm-hmm.
around that playoff. But I mean, I know a lot of teams are hurting because they gave up
Yeah,
their RB2 and their wide receiver 1
yeah,
to get McCaffrey, who was both of those things.
yeah,
So I'll be curious to see over the next, by week 6,
yeah.
where people are as far as are you 0-6, are you 1-5, or
Mm-hmm.
how's the McCaffrey gone? So
Yeah, and the
yeah,
hard part is you usually had to take him at the 101, so chances are, if you're in most common leagues, you had the last pick in the second round. So, like, your firepower is lower than everybody else's, and then
yeah,
even more so if you're, like you said, made a trade for him. The one thing I will mention, especially in PPR and half PPR, make sure you go grab Mike Davis. He looked really good in the passing work he received. So, I think at the very least, he should be a decent flex play. If just because of the work he'll get. Um, I, I mean, other than that, I mean, maybe DJ Moore shares going up because of targets,
yeah,
those short targets that McCaffrey feasted on. The goal line is definitely something where, like, I've seen him instead of throwing a short pass to DJ Moore, they would just hand it off to McCaffrey because why wouldn't you?
right,
And you could see an uptick in that as well. So that's basically the repercussions of that, other than just butchering your fantasy team. So um,
yeah,
the next one we got is the duo in 49ers backfield is Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman. One's relevant, one's not. Raheem Mostert is somebody that do not drop him. If you're in a redraft league, do not pull the whole, he's hurt, I got to replace him, let me go ahead and let him be the one I cut. I would still wholeheartedly drop like whoever my worst player is over an
right,
injured Raheem Mostert because Raheem
yeah,
Mostert has already showed that when he's healthy, he's going to be a significant part of this team, and he's very explosive. It doesn't sound like his is very serious. It sounds like it's one of those he just rests a little bit.
yeah,
Coleman, I mean, Jay may have a different stance, but I got to fully give credit to our buddy Tate that's in our leagues together. He's been the hype machine for McKinnon all offseason. It's like
yep,
his literally, if he could have a banner for every single one of his teams, it would be McKinnon. If you've seen our running backs episode, it was the joke I made. I put him there.
yeah, yeah,
And McKinnon has, with complete honesty, played his way to at least the backup when Raheem Mostert comes back. I don't think Coleman has the job he had at all, but Mostert should still be significant. But I'll let Jay kind of give his input on how he sees things playing out.
yeah. I mean, I'm already kind of out on the 49ers backfield, just kind of in the first place. I mean, I like Mostert, but as far as draft range, I wasn't really touching those guys, and so adding those injuries in, it was
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely not dropping Mostert, as you said. But and if I need it, if I'm in a deeper league, I need a guy, I'll try to grab McKinnon.
Mm-hmm.
But with the question marks, that was week 1. I saw a lot of McKinnon pickups like early on in the waivers, and so
Mm-hmm.
he's probably not available in a lot of places. But if he's there, I definitely pick him up this week.
Yeah, that I don't think anybody can not just gasp at that 3-31 or 3rd and 31, or you've got the
Right.
55 yarder. That was unbelievable. And that's
Yeah.
why I was like, Tate's just probably dancing right now, but he's got. I don't think he caught it, but it was still definitely victory laps for him right now. And for those who are saying it's just because of the injury, that's not true at all. McKinnon has
Yeah.
genuinely looked like old McKinnon, so he's earned his role. Coleman, you can completely forget about. Honestly, probably in Dynasty as well. I hate saying that, but I mean, maybe hold on to see if he goes somewhere else next year. Could land in a committee, but I don't think his role in this committee is going to be significant anymore. But that being said, McKinnon could get hurt again. So
Right.
if McKinnon
Yeah.
gets hurt, Jeff Wilson season, I don't know. But there's
Yeah.
not a whole lot other than if McKinnon's available, go pick him up and don't drop Raheem Mostert.
Yeah.
Next one, same team, Jimmy Garoppolo. There's not a whole lot to say here. It's unfortunate, but go pick up Nick Mullins.
Yep.
He's going to be, especially in Superflex leagues, he's going to save you on a bye week maybe coming up. If you're one of those teams that didn't get a third quarterback and now an opportunity's there, go get you Nick Mullins. He looked good when Garoppolo was out. Was it last year? That or the year before? I don't remember what season it was, but when Mullins came in, he looked the part. I think he can. A lot of people thought they were going to move on from Garoppolo already for
Yeah,
it
for
before they
sure.
signed him on that, or because they had an out, I think, on his contract, but they didn't take it. I don't think.
Yeah.
You got anything else to add about the 49ers here?
No, no.
Okay. Which we'll get back to Kittle obviously later, but these are our week by week injuries. Next one up is Paris Campbell. I'll let you kick that one off.
Yeah. He's a guy that I think that's like PCL.
Yeah.
And there's still some question marks about what definitively is his timeline.
Yeah.
So a guy, I mean, I'm probably not holding on to. It'd be so I saw some Zach Pascal discussion going around with Paris Campbell being out. I'm not really chasing down Pascal. But if you want to, you can. But it's bummed out. I mean, because Paris was really having a great start of the season, and a lot of anticipation for him this year, and especially going on the Colts offense with play action from Taylor. And I mean, I love the idea of Michael Pittman, and I thought coming in that T.Y. Hilton was going to be the main guy still.
Yeah.
And so I was wrong apparently. So it's a bummer to see that for Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, for me, with Campbell, it's one of those where if you have a league that's got an IR spot, I think he's worth that. But if not, like most redrafts don't have them, aside from like COVID for this year, I would drop him for a pickup. He's definitely droppable, especially because you should be able to get him back if you need to. I mean, best tip in fantasy is pick him up 2 weeks ahead, not wait till when it's time. If you've got the room to do it, especially in leagues that have defenses, that's the best thing to always do is play 2 weeks ahead. But for me, I was Team Pittman anyway. I still have him, even though he struggled at first, and it's looking like the take is going to be a miss. It still could be out there. I had him as my high-scoring rookie wide receiver this year, just because I believed in the opportunity and the talent. He's not my number one. I think I had him as like wide receiver 5 or 6 out of this class. I just think this first year opportunity-wise, he had one of the better ones. And so we'll see. And then Pascal, I zero interest in that. I think if anything, this kind of solidifies the role that Naheem Hines had or has. So I think if you were able to go snag him, I think I don't think he's going to do what he did week 1, but I mean, you've seen what the ceiling is for him. So I think this kind of solidifies that for him. So Paris Campbell, long story short, if you got an IR spot, I think he's worth that, but he's definitely a droppable player if you don't. Moving on to the next, Sammy Watkins, shouldn't have had him in the first place. Drop him if you do.
Never Sammy Watkins. Never on any of my teams.
And if you had him week 1, I mean, you should have known already. That's the only time he does anything.
Yeah, should have sold him. Sold him after week 1.
If you didn't sell him, you missed.
Too bad. So, I want the guy to be healthy, but still cutting him.
He's a decoy out there most weeks, and he's a good one too because I mean, for an NFL team, he's a good receiver to have. But fantasy, I don't touch him anywhere. Yep. Next one up, very unfortunate one. I was actually starting to grow on him as a kind of a sleeper value type pick. Sterling Shepard. It's looking like he's week to week. It definitely solidifies the role that Slayton has. At the same time, Slayton benefits from other guys getting most of the attention, so we'll see. I was really bummed out by this one. This is the first year I've actually started to kind of sort of believe in like wanting to acquire Shepard if I could for cheap, as like a depth piece to throw in on bye weeks if I needed. And he's out right now for I don't know the exact timeline. I don't think there is one yet, but he should return this year. But it's very unfortunate. To me, he's droppable. But same as Paris Campbell. If you got an IR spot, he's worth holding if there's not better options. But I definitely would be dropping him.
Yeah.
Next one up, Rashad Perriman. There was a lot of believers in him. I was not. I like Denzel Mims, who's also hurt right now. But um, drop him. I mean, I don't see any reason to hold on to him because even
Yeah, I'm not. I'm never really a big Perriman guy. In the preseason when they were making signings and signing a few guys, I thought he had a shot. But other than those few stretches at Tampa Bay last year when Godwin and Evans were hurt, just flashed there, but not someone I'm really rostering. And it unless your league is, I mean, we're talking super deep. But I mean, for the most part, I feel like you can get a replaceable guy
yeah,
relative to this guy. I mean, honestly, I'd grab a rookie like maybe like a Jalen Rager,
mm-hmm.
or even shoot, I even have Justin Jefferson right
Yeah,
now, just a little bit more upside than carrying.
upside, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Perriman's somebody that I didn't have anywhere to begin with. I'm Team Herndon and Jameson. Crowder is definitely the receiver to have here, and even
Yeah,
he's not doing the greatest. I mean, he had that one breakaway play that saved his week one, but he's hurt right now too. So,
right.
but it's definitely I believed in Mims, who's also hurt. This is just a wide receiver core. I'm not interested in. Um,
Yeah.
Anything that has any contact with Adam Gase is usually not a good thing to have on your fantasy team. So,
That offense, I mean the Jets offense, I mean, honestly, Sam Darnold was the one guy that you could have some stock into, but the guys you got around him right now, I mean, I just continue to avoid that like the plague.
yeah, now he's definitely somebody I still wholeheartedly say in all dynasty leagues, go get Sam Darnold and go get Denzel Mims and be ready for the parade when Adam Gase is fired. Because I think they both have solid futures and they should be dirt cheap right now.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's no significance on this team. I want to believe in Herndon. Uh, it's one of those where I'm to the point now where I got to see it to believe it kind of things. And
Yeah.
even then, I don't know if I believe it after I see it yet. So moving on to the next one, week by week, is Dawson Knox. He is somebody that I didn't have a whole lot of beforehand. I thought I was going to be higher on him going into the season, and then
Yeah.
I did my stats for the Bills and just didn't find room for him anywhere to be like significant. So I mean, this is kind of I mean, maybe it affects Josh Allen. I don't know. I don't think it does, but I just think it's going to be insert next tight end here kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of post-season buzz. I remember watching some of the tape at the end of last year, to where he was successful,
Mm,
and we kind of seen that carry over. But I mean, that kind of fizzled out once we got
yep.
closer to the season. And then this is kind of where we are, like where he's, I could probably name 20-year tight ends I take over him right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, just not worth a lot right now.
Talent wise, as a prospect, maybe go grab him in Dynasty, just a stash. But I think it would require them losing somebody like a Cole Beasley going into next season
Right,
for him to take a step forward. So Dawson Knox, if it's redraft, I mean, wholeheartedly just drop. There's no reason to
yeah,
keep him. Last one we're going to mention, there's really not a whole lot to comment on, is Michael Thomas. He's just, business as usual, but for those of you that are still kind of waiting to hear, like he shouldn't be playing Sunday. There
right,
was some rumors about it, but everything I'm hearing and seeing is he's not. He's at least missing this next game,
right.
so you can kind of he's somebody you can drop if you're in a league with me, please. Um,
All right, and our last set of guys are all questionable to play on Sunday. The first, I'm going to kind of just run through the list, and then we'll talk a little bit about each of those guys. Devontae Adams, George Kittle, Kenny Galladay, Cam Akers, Will Fuller, AJ Brown, and Tyrod Taylor. Dallas, any of those guys you want to kind of just focus in on and that for the coming to your mind?
Yeah, so Devonte Adams looks like he's going to play Sunday, so I think we're good there. Kenny Galladay also looks like he's going to play. AJ Brown is somebody that I think is going to play, but he's somebody I'm not starting. I don't think
Right.
you are either. That kind of
No.
injury with his play style, he's just not somebody that I trust coming off of an injury because he's already a low volume type of player, and if that
Right.
impacts his ability to separate or go up and grab those 50-50 balls that he's known to get or those breakaways, I've got no interest in. I think he's one of those that's going to burn you if you start him
Yeah.
coming off the energy or
Yeah.
energy. If you start him coming off of the injury, so you
Right.
definitely kind of want to pass him this week, even if he's active. I did that with Cortland Sutton this past week. Unfortunately, obviously he's out for the season now, but that's not it. I wasn't taking that risk because he's the same type of player. I don't trust those guys. coming off of injury just for sheer volume reasons. A lot of times they're thrown out early just to be decoys for the other guys, just because they they're they're not a heavily volume feature of the game anyway. So just having them out there doesn't hurt the team that much. And then Will Fuller is Will Fuller doing Will Fuller things. So I, he's I'm not interested in starting him just because until I see it consistently, which we may not all year. Best ball league's great, but other than that, I usually don't have Will Fuller anywhere for that very reason.
Agreed. Me neither.
And then Tyrod Taylor, he's probably playing. I'm not playing him. So
Yeah, I want him to just start Herbert. But I think that's most of us in the fantasy
yeah,
community.
I think. I mean, I don't know when GMs are going to wake up and realize that the fantasy community knows what's best and
Right.
start listening to us, like fire Adam Gase. I mean, that's pretty obvious. And then all of us are doing victory laps on Twitter when we were right, but and it seems to be all the time. So it's a good idea. If I was a GM, I'd listen to fantasy football
Sure.
community and then get fired 2 weeks later. Um,
And the one thing I want to add, the way I approach those guys that I have on my team, I typically don't plug them into my lineup, and I wait for news to start them because
mm,
in my last couple of years, what I've noticed is that if I assume someone's going to play and they're a last second scratch, then I get a zero from that position.
mm,
But typically, if they end up being a last second, play, if I don't happen to catch them in, I still
mm,
get my person that I have replaced in.
yep.
And if I happen to catch them, so I rather get 6 points from my wide receiver 5 or 6 than 0 points from my wide receiver 1 who's hurt. And so just pay attention to those guys as they get closer to the game. I know Kittle was one that they were still talking about that probably will play, but you know how some of those injuries can be. So
Yeah.
that's typically how I handle those guys that are questionable for Sunday as we get closer to the week.
Yeah. So that's going to close it out for the news injury segment. Unfortunately, it was just an injury segment, but we're going to go ahead and kick off our starts of the week. We're going to start off with quarterbacks. So go ahead and let you give yours, Jay.
Yeah, so Dallas is gonna love my first quarterback. About the only time I'll root for a Cowboy, but first quarterback is Dak Prescott. I'm excited to see Dak versus Russell Wilson. That's just gonna be a nice shootout of the. If you watch the game last week, that Dallas was able to put up points against the Falcons, and so I really don't see a lot changing this week. And I mean, he's a guy. I just want to see the relationship with him and CeeDee Lamb continue to grow, and also getting Zeke into the passing game some. So I mean, I think he's a great play right now, and if you're playing Dak, he probably wasn't super early. He wasn't your first quarterback taken on the board, so you're probably gonna be able to fill positions around. And so I think he's gonna lead you to a good week. Dallas, who's your start of the week?
Yeah. Mine is only mine because Jay didn't want to sound like this is the only player he talked about. Is Cam Newton. He's shown us nothing but excellence so far, and he's going against the Raiders, who typically I would have said green light regardless. But you've seen what happened on Monday night against the Saints. They did hold Drew Brees to not that great of a game, but the play style between Brees and Newton is daylight and dark. There's so many other ways that the reason Cam Newton thrives is because they're constantly having to look for his running and his scrambling. That you can't have the tight end being smothered by the linebacker because the linebacker's too busy worried about Cam Newton running the ball, or the safety, insert, player that usually it's the best player for that defense. They're not focusing on some of these guys. They're focusing on Cam. That's why he thrives. And he's somebody that, especially in 4 point leagues, you've seen already 4 point passing touchdown leagues. You've seen already that he rushes the ball in for the touchdown almost every time they get to the goal line. That's why rest in peace to any running back on the Patriots at getting a rushing touchdown. But he's somebody that against the Raiders had a great game, and I'm not taking that away from them at all. But their defense is not over the top. I think the Saints just couldn't figure out what to do to get rolling. I mean, you've seen Kamara absolutely thrive underneath, and so you got Edelman that's probably going to get a lot of those exact same targets again, like he did last week. So Edelman's probably a really good start as well. He wasn't either of our start of the weeks at wide receiver, but he's probably another one that's going to be really, really well to start. And Cam Newton's just going to be a smash year in, year out this year. So I just think, I mean, Jay doesn't even have to say a word about him because he just his first two words he learned coming out of the womb was Cam Newton. So he's got me wholeheartedly on that ship, though. I'm all aboard, as you could tell from our last episode. We're a Cam Newton team over here.
So my running back start in the week is Miles Sanders. So they are playing Cincinnati this week, and Cincinnati is just really struggling. And so I see Philly, because of their up and down last couple of weeks, probably really trying to control the clock and finding their pace. And so with Miles Sanders getting more usage, he definitely had a big increase. Well, he didn't play the week before, but having a high percentage of the snap counts for the backfield, they're really trying to kind of establish the run there and utilize a lot of the Ertz Goddard's two tight end sets, and really just dictate the game to try to get back to their Philly style of play. There's a lot of question marks with the wide receiver outside of Jalen Rager and Deshaun Jackson right now, and so I think Miles is going to have the ball a lot and really control the game. So I see him having a big game. Dallas, you have Kenyon Drake playing Detroit. So tell me more about Drake against Detroit for your running back start of the week.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake is one of the guys I planted a flag on going into the year. You heard in our last episode of Give Me All That, Kenyon Drake was one of mine. He's not had the hottest start of the season. Week 1 was a little bit better than last week because he got in the end zone and was able to actually make that not so great week look a lot better than it was. Main reason is Kenyon Drake hasn't looked bad. Just Chase Edmonds has been a lot more involved than we thought he was going to be. But Detroit is abysmal at the run game. I mean, you look, Aaron Jones has dropped a 50-point game on him pretty much, depending on the format you're in, and they just can't stop it. And this is a team that I think is such a high-powered passing team. He's just going to get whatever he wants on Sunday, and I think he's going to feast against a really poor defense, especially in PPR leagues. I think he's going to get a lot of passing work as well. Aaron Jones scored 2 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown against them. That being said, Aaron Jones is a little bit more featured for his offense, but that being said, I don't expect a 50-point bomb by Kenyon Drake by no means, but I definitely can see him being a week winner, especially for those of you starting to doubt him. He's somebody that you can definitely go try and get right now if you can. I don't know if our trade episode's coming out before this or after this, but he's one that we mentioned to go trade for. I'm going to mention that in this as well. Make sure you go get him because this should be a great matchup for him. And for those of you who were big believers in him and aren't still on the train like I am, I'm not getting rid of him. But if you're having your doubts, he should have a big week this week, and this would be the week to trade him away afterwards. So I'm keeping him, but if you want to do that, this should be the week to do it. So that is my running back starter of the week. Moving on to our wide receivers. My wide receiver starter of the week is Keenan Allen. He's had his struggles this year. But it's not been his fault at all. None of it's been him. It's just been the situation around him. Defenses know he's the main guy that's going to get the ball, and the quarterbacks have not been able to really get it to him. However, I don't think that lasts forever. We've seen very, very good signs out of Herbert, even though Tyrod should be the starter this week. I think it's going to get to a point where two things are going to happen. Either A, Tyrod's going to struggle again, and everybody's going to be calling for his head and wanting Herbert back out there because he almost beat Mahomes, or Tyrod stays out there, but they realize their featured wide receiver's not been doing anything, and it becomes apparent that they want to get him the ball. And Carolina's not a good defense at all. That's an understatement, honestly. And so he's somebody that should thrive, especially in PPR leagues. I think he's gonna have his big week this week, and gonna kind of validate anybody who took him as late as he was going, and make you feel a lot better about having him. So Keenan Allen is my start of the week.
Yeah, and my start of the week is Allen Robinson. He's just not had great weeks, but they are playing the Falcons this week, and I expect another shootout, as I mentioned before in the Dallas and Seattle game. I don't see that as being a defensive struggle, and I think Mr. Trubisky will just really try to feed Allen Robinson the ball, and I don't necessarily know that Atlanta will be able to stop that completely. So he's a guy that I see having a big week. That a lot of times maybe wide receiver 2 that can really help you out this week. So. Don't have a lot to add. He's by far their best player. He's trying to get paid, and I see him giving the man the ball.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm going to throw in an honorable mention here. I backed out of him, but I want to mention him again just because I think he will be a really good, at least flex start, is CeeDee Lamb against Seattle. You've seen what Julian Edelman just did to that defense, and they had a lot less to worry about than Julian Edelman on the wide receiver core than they will with Dallas. I think CeeDee Lamb is starting to break out of his shell. And I think he has a really, really big game because I think it's going to be a really, really another shootout. with Dallas and Seattle, both high-powered offenses, that you're going to see CeeDee Lamb. Everybody's going to get work, but I think he's going to be one that's kind of they don't know who to stop, and he's going to be the one that reaps the benefits from it. So don't be surprised for CeeDee Lamb to have really big. If you're trying to dance on a who to start on your flex because you have somebody else that's been struggling, like an Anthony Miller or somebody like that, I definitely would start CeeDee Lamb over somebody like that this week. So I just wanted to mention him as well, which kicks us to our tight ends. Jay, you want to go ahead and give your tight end?
Yeah, my tight end is Mike Gesicki from the where does he lie? My tight end. So my tight end is Mike Gesicki from the Miami Dolphins. They are playing Jacksonville this week, and I mean, if you've been on social media or been paying attention, I mean, they're talking about how he lines up in the slide and how he's not actually a tight end. And I'm very partial to tight ends that don't line up as tight ends. And I think he just continues to maintain his high level. I think with Fitzpatrick there, and then maybe eventually Tua. He's just a great guy to get the ball to as they kind of navigate the backfield. I think they're starting to clear it up. A lot of question marks out there in Miami, and I just think that one of the things that's just consistent is Mike Gesicki. So I think he's going to have another big week.
Yeah. All right, so my tight end this week is Jonnu Smith. He's going up against Minnesota, and we all seen what Mo Alley Cox did to them last week. Absolutely feasted, and he's on a team just like Jonnu Smith that runs first, has a strong defense, and the tight ends usually benefit on teams like that, especially with the fact that A.J. Brown is either out or going to be out there as kind of basically a decoy. I can't imagine him having a huge game, so Jonnu Smith is somebody that is definitely delivering on the value picks that a lot of us were saying that you should definitely go out and draft him late. He's absolutely delivering. I think he does it again on Sunday. So that does it for our starts of the week. Hopefully you guys have those guys. If you do have them and you're debating it, those guys are ones you should absolutely have in your starting lineups. So we're going to go ahead and transition here to a short little dynasty segment where we just kind of mention two players that are very, very deep that you should probably pick up just to kind of keep dynasty relevant on the channel, because we are big dynasty players as well. We don't want to solely focus on redraft. So we have two players here for you. We both picked one. I'm going to let Jay say his.
Yeah, so my dynasty pickup is Quintez Cephas. We talked about he's not like this secret guy that no one's heard of, but really up until the last couple of weeks, people haven't really taken his performance seriously. He only has 6 catches for 54 yards in the first couple of weeks. And with Galladay being out and just the Lions kind of struggling overall, he's not really shined as far as overall production. But if you get a chance to watch the footage and watch the game and watch him play, he's really just such a high impact guy already. And he's a guy that, as you look at Marvin Jones, and I think Dallas and I talked about this earlier, just Marvin Jones eventually be losing some of his speed or moving on from him. I see him really stepping into that role. And right now, I mean, he's a guy I've been picking up off waiver wires because people are very, very, right now focused on their teams. They're trying to get older guys, picking up Alshon Jeffrey and, Mohamed Sanu to try to win this year. And when you're talking about your wide receiver 7 or 8, give me a guy that I can stash, on there that's going to give me a lot more. That may not contribute to me winning my title this year quite as much, but will help me in the long run. So it's definitely a guy that I'm picking up. And it sounds like based on your guy, it may not be that different of a rationale for you.
Yeah, so it's pretty much the same thing. These are guys that we're just stashing that could potentially end up being more valuable than you may think, or the way they are being treated currently. Mine's Darnell Mooney. He's a rookie wide receiver for the Bears. He kind of sparked a little bit. He got a touchdown catch this past Sunday, and he only had 3 catches for 36 yards, but he did get a touchdown. And it goes ahead and shows you, being a rookie that off everybody's radar completely, unless you're in like a 4 or 5 round rookie draft, usually was undrafted, probably sitting on your waivers right now, to go out and get a touchdown. That means they're already relevant enough in this first year to get some work, and those are usually guys that long term eventually work their way into that. And like I said, these are guys you just throw a dart at that have more value than somebody that's probably just been cut, that's sitting on your team that you didn't even realize, stuff like that. These are guys that have potential. Cephas, I think, is a really good example of somebody who, once Marvin Jones decides to move on, I think Cephas can kind of step into that role in year 3, year 4 kind of thing, and could have relevancy as quick as this year if an injury happens. So that's what happens with these guys. With Darnell Mooney, same thing. It may be 3 years out that he actually does anything, but slap him on your taxi squad next year. if you need to. But chances are, if somebody gets hurt, like an Anthony Miller, Mooney immediately jumps into relevancy, and so that's what you're constantly targeting here. Like with the Bears, you were kind of wondering, is it Riley Ridley? Because we know his brother. That's why everybody was talking about him. But in all reality, it looks like Mooney's probably he's probably the wide receiver 4 behind like Ted Ginn. But like I said, guys like that aren't going to be around very long. And then you got potential injuries or just working their way into relevance if they're more talented. Because as much as I like Anthony Miller, if it's not been written in stone yet that he is what we all think he's going to be. So there is a real possibility where camp happens and Mooney just steps up and shines. These guys are guys that you throw darts at that you're more than comfortable dropping later on if you need to. But these are guys to keep your eye on that are more than nothing, as our friend loves to say. It's not nothing is the exact quote. But these are guys you can pick up in your dynasty leagues that are probably on your waivers, which is very hard to find. Usually your waivers are just a wasteland. So these are guys you can probably go get or trade, 3 years from now, third round pick for, and they're probably going to deliver on that. So that rounds off this short little dynasty segment. Like I said, we'll have more primetime dynasty topics, but as of right now, redraft's kind of the hot thing going on at this very second. So we still want to keep dynasty involved, so it's kind of a little segment there for that. So we're going to go ahead and return our Thorn segment that we mentioned last time. Like I said, we took a break last week, so we couldn't do week 1's, but week 2's Thorn of the Week.
It's Gio Bernard of the Cincinnati Bengals. All the Joe Mixon truthers are really angry with Gio Bernard, and I mean, really, to be fair, it just didn't quite understand some of the decision making from the coaching staff for having Gio in. Does talk more about how that worked and why he's our Thorn for the week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those where these guys are strictly here because nobody started them, but they did hurt your starter. And this is one where he hurt Mixon. The touchdown ended up getting recalled, but this would be even more of a thorn had that touchdown stand. And then he took a touchdown away from Mixon, but he came in and was taking all the passing work, almost all the third downs, the 2-minute drills he was in for. And he's not somebody you're ever going to start. And that's the whole point in the thorn is they're just these guys that are a thorn in your foot that you don't even want there. Even if it somehow finds a way to benefit you, they're never going to. And instead, they just hurt your foot, and your foot being Joe Mixon. And so he struggled, didn't have a very big game, and a lot of that's because Gio's just in there stealing from him. So that's our Thorn of our Week. We're going to go ahead and round it out with some Q&A here. I'll let Jay go ahead and kick off the first question.
Yeah, so the first question, in Dynasty, a Dynasty question here. Keep, trade, cut. The people are Kenyon Drake, Austin Eckler, and Aaron Jones.
Yeah, so this came in from our buddy MJ Reller. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to? I think we're pretty similar.
You go right ahead.
We're similar on the trade, and so I'll start with that part. We both wholeheartedly agree in Aaron Jones being the trade. Yep. Because he's the highest value you can get on a return here. It just makes the most sense to trade him. He's not somebody that he does have a history of being up and down, and coming off of a huge game like that, I'm going to trade Aaron Jones. And that's just the nature here. We have no disagreements there. We're on complete opposites for this next one. So my keep is actually Kenyon Drake. As you heard me mention in my start of the week, I definitely don't think he's somebody that you should be moving on from. I think him and Eckler, this is a perfect question because him and Eckler are in a very, very similar situation. You could use the tiebreaker being that Eckler has the contract. That being said, it's not looking promising for him having as significant of a role because Joshua Kelly is looking better and better. And Kenyon Drake, on the other hand, although he's been struggling, mainly because Edmonds is doing a lot more than we had originally anticipated, his role is still pretty much solidified as the starter and gets significant work, which Eckler's is too. But that's the difference with me, and I also am one of the group that believes that they'll end up re-signing Kenyon Drake, just because with the market right now on running backs, he's not going to be that expensive for him. They can probably re-sign him for close to what his tag is at $8 to $9 million a year, as opposed to these top tier guys getting $15-16 million a year. They're not going to have to pay that, and they don't have to spend high draft capital on going and drafting a running back next year because they have him. So I don't see a reason why he doesn't get re-signed. I think he likes it here. They take care of him. Unless he comes out and absolutely finishes the year as RB1 with like some crazy explosive year, I think he'll be a reasonable price for them. So in Dynasty, I'm going to keep Kenyon Drake because I don't really think you can trade him for as much value as you really should, but I
Right.
also don't want to cut him either. I'm going to trade Aaron Jones because he's the one you get the most value out of here. And I'm going to cut Austin Eckler strictly because if I had to choose between him and Drake, I prefer Drake, but in no scenario am I ever cutting Austin Eckler.
Yeah, and like you said, we split. So I definitely just keep Austin Eckler and cut Kenyon Drake. But you really a lot of reasons that you talked about why they're both valuable. The same thing that I would say. I just lean more towards Eckler
Mm-hmm.
and his staying power there, and especially with the little bit that I saw from Herbert, and his targeting running backs kind of similar to the Philip Rivers style.
Yep.
That kind of keeps me excited for Austin Eckler's work.
Yep.
And Kenyon Drake with just the presence of Kyler Murray and the wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how if Kenyon Drake is going to maintain to be the key focus of that offense,
Yep.
in the same way that Eckler is at the Chargers.
Yeah, and it also depends on your belief on the wide receivers there. I was on Team Hopkins the whole time. I said if there's anybody that's going to be quarterback proof, situation proof, it's Hopkins. And I was also Team I don't want Christian Kirk at all. A lot of people still view him as a significant piece in Dynasty, somebody I've not had any interest in at all. And that's because I think Drake is going to be the one who gets most of those important targets that Kirk would have gotten, and the volume is just not going to be there. And so that's kind of what the tier break is for me. But
Yep.
had that not been the case, and this also it's a little bit different in full PPR. It's a lot closer for me, where it'd be hard to choose between the two of them. And in full PPR for you, it's probably clear and easy, not even a question.
Easy.
So,
Yep.
but that's our question one. Our question number two is in a redraft for half PPR, would you take for the rest of the season Derrick Henry or Dalvin Cook? We pulled this from a post on a forum, so we don't give the users unless they were submitted. But if this is your question, this is our answer. Jay, you want to go and give your answer here?
Yeah, I'm gonna take Derrick Henry. Just because I have a little bit more faith in the Titans' commitment to getting him the ball than I do the Vikings and Dalvin Cook,
Mhm.
which sounds crazy. But the Titans know who they are. They're a run heavy team, and they're going to continue to be a run heavy team. The Vikings used to know who they were, but some of the personnel changes and the coaching changes, right now they're kind of in a little bit of a crisis. And so it'd be nice if they just kind of relied back to Cook and just make sure they hand him the ball, which, as I said, Cook is the guy I'm trying to buy right now in a lot of leagues. But if you're asking me right now between those two, I'd rather have the no question marks about Derrick Henry and getting the ball. Those carries are going to add up. Versus Dalvin, to where they might be trying to maintain some of the pattern system they had before, replace Stephon Diggs, kind of create a new identity. Just a lot of question marks there. That they're going to be in a lot of negative game scripts, so they'll be passing the ball more because they're down. Whereas the Titans, they keep maintaining the clock, they'll be running the ball more so than the Vikings would have particularly done in the past.
Yeah, so for me, it's Dalvin Cook, but I'm also notoriously low on Henry. I'm not a Henry guy. I'm not a fan of those styles of running backs where they're, in my opinion, they're touchdown dependent. Because if you go and have Derrick Henry rush the ball for 170 yards, that's 17 points. And then you take somebody like Dalvin Cook, who may only rush for 90, but then he had 9 catches on top of it. That's 18 points. And so, or in half PPR, it's slightly less. But that being said, I also think Derrick Henry's touchdowns come down. And that's something that I've said in our RB rankings where they're so touchdown dependent. To kind of dial back what I was saying with that is I don't see his touchdowns staying as high as they were last year over the course of the season. And Dalvin Cook's already shown that they're 100% going his way on the goal line every single time, regardless of how they need to get in there. I mean, you just look at Sunday, he got in and then turned right around and was the one who got the 2-point conversion as well. They went right back to it because it works.
Right.
And I think you can see, I envision a little bit of what happened in Cincinnati last year, where the team just fell apart and they just said screw it and just gave it to Mixon over and over again. That's how I feel it's going to happen with Cook. And so for me, being somebody, if you go against a team that shuts down the run, and there are plenty of those teams out there. I prefer to have somebody like Cook on my team than Derrick Henry because they're one dimensional, and I want somebody that can do more than just run the ball. And
Yeah.
granted, he does it spectacularly, but Dalvin Cook also is very good at running the ball. And so if he also has the passing work on top of that, plus it looks like the team, I don't. It's debatable on if they'll have more scoring opportunities because it's really not looking like a great offense. It comes down to the passing work for me. This being half PPR, it's not even close in standard. I mean, Derrick Henry's probably the 101, but when it comes to factoring any kind of form of PPR, I'm going to go with the Dalvin Cook side here.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I could definitely flip flop in my argument with the same reason, rationale you made there. And our third question is, so we actually brought this up earlier, and so we thought it was a good discussion topic for our third question. Which running back would you take over CMC? And this is PPR redraft. So where the question frame is, with CMC being out for an extended amount of time and then coming back for however many weeks are left, which running back would you rather have, assuming they're healthy that whole time, or CMC being out for a couple of weeks and then back at a CMC level after that? So, Dallas, where was your running back cutoff for taking over Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah, so the three examples that you gave me were Miles Sanders, CEH, and Jonathan Taylor for like would you rather kind of question, and I found my line to be right around there. I would take Miles Sanders over CEH just because that's a significant chunk of the season. Miles Sanders over CMC because it should be a significant chunk of the season. Even it's kind of two scenarios here with Christian McCaffrey. He's either going to miss and then come back great, or he's going to come back earlier than he should and struggle for a few weeks. So it's still about the same amount of window where you're not getting CMC production. And so it's for me, Miles Sanders, I'm taking over Christian McCaffrey. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'm also taking over him. But Jonathan Taylor is kind of where that line comes in, where I have a really, really hard time with it. I really think with Mac being gone, Jonathan Taylor is going to be a very, very significant part of the team. And he's getting a lot more passing work than any of us anticipated. And so I would probably also lean Jonathan Taylor over that. But right there's where that line starts kicking in. Like Joe Mixon, I would probably hold on to CMC and just try to find a way to make it work. Unless the person was coming to me with Joe Mixon plus a significant piece for Christian McCaffrey, but that's about where my line is right there.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you. I'm looking kind of at some of the running back rankings or where they're scoring, and then the guys I start running into is the Nick Chubb, and then Chris Carson and James Conner, and I think above those guys, as you said, Miles Sanders, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, I'm going to take all of those guys above CMC. And so the first guy that I would probably take CMC before would be probably Nick Chubb, only because we're talking about some shared work already there, and I think I'd rather have 100% of CMC for a couple of weeks than the 60% work that Chubb splits with Hunt for the rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of the way you handle this. If you watch our trading episode, that's either coming out later or already out. I haven't decided yet on how those are going to come out, but that's somebody that you can try to trade for with somebody like Nick Chubb right now, because for us we'd rather have him, and so. It's one of those where that would be kind of how our line is with Christian McCaffrey right now. So hopefully that helps some of you that are trying to figure out what in the world to do with him and how to handle some of the offers I'm sure you have coming in right now for him. Dynasty, nope. I'm taking the L this year and just kind of riding out with what I got. You don't ever sell these guys from injury in Dynasty, but in redraft, which is what this question is. He's somebody that is still going to be very significant. It's the same injury that same injury that Saquon Barkley and Alvin Kamara suffered from last year. They both came back earlier than they really should have, and you saw they didn't look like the same players. And then by the time playoffs rolled around, they were both right back to where they were and killing it. And that's what Christian McCaffrey should ideally. That's usually how this goes. You'll probably see a little bit of that from Michael Thomas as well. This is kind of how those high ankle sprains go, and. So he's definitely not somebody that you just give away. That's just nonsense. But there is some guys that definitely have jumped above him for the rest of the year
Yeah.
that you definitely should keep. So, question really is where do you think Chris McCaffrey is going to finish the season? Realistic answer is probably RB 9 or 10, even
Right.
missing, 6 games if
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
gets that significant, or probably a little bit better than that if he comes back earlier and just kind of struggles. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
all right, guys, that's our episode this week. Jay, you got anything else you want to add?
No. Good luck this week. Enjoy some football.
Yep. Hit us up on Twitter. Any questions you got that we maybe didn't cover for you, some start sets or some good waivers or, trade ranks, stuff like that.
Yeah.
On Twitter, you got Dallas FFO and at Pick on the Block and at the FF Outpost. Those are our Twitters you can reach us at for any questions you got. Make sure you follow us. Share this around, subscribe, help us grow, and we appreciate you for tuning in. We'll see
Thanks,
you.
guys. See ya.